The crash of porcelain against steel froze the boardroom mid-sentence. Every executive turned as an older woman in a faded kitchen apron pushed a dish cart into the room, the wheels squealing over marble. Sunlight glinted off glass and chrome. She paused, head bowed, as $20 million of business talk dissolved into awkward silence. CFO Lawrence Pike leaned back, his grin spreading slow and smug. "Did the cafeteria take a wrong turn?" he said. Laughter followed, brittle and mean. Amelia Grant said nothing. She stacked cups and plates with careful precision. Her calm only sharpened their cruelty. The smell of espresso mixed with arrogance. She could feel their eyes, smirks, whispers, the small delight of powerful people mocking someone they deemed invisible. CEO Nora Whitfield glanced at her gold watch. "We're finalizing the Orchid Robotics acquisition," she said. "Please finish quickly." Amelia's voice, quiet but steady, cut through the hum of the projector. "Then you may want to review your numbers before you sign." The laughter stopped. Lawrence frowned. "Excuse me?" Amelia straightened her back, the simple motion transforming her. Orchid restructured its debt last quarter. The $3 million in projected savings you're counting on is gone. Silence stretched. Lawrence forced a laugh that died halfway. "You must have read that while polishing tables." No one joined in. Nora's gaze lingered on the woman's face. Something about her poise didn't fit the uniform. "Who are you?" she asked. Amelia's faint smile held history. Someone who remembers when Helios Labs valued integrity more than quarterly profit. The air thickened. Lawrence scoffed. "Security will handle this," yet his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his glass. Amelia turned, pushing her cart toward the door, dignity intact. Behind her, whispers rippled through the room. Did she say she built the company? She sounded like she knew the reports. Down the hall, bright lights reflected off framed photographs, early patents, the first lab, the founders in a cluttered garage. Once, Amelia's face had been there beneath a banner reading "Innovation Through Inclusion." The photo was gone now, replaced by portraits of the current board. In the service elevator, she finally exhaled. Her reflection stared back. Gray-streaked hair, sharp eyes, and a calm forged in decades of creation and betrayal. She removed her gloves, folded them neatly, and whispered, "They forgot who built their empire." Her phone buzzed. A message from Aaron Sethi, her lawyer and oldest friend. Ownership confirmed. 67% control. Amelia's lips curved faintly. "Perfect," she murmured. Upstairs, Lawrence tried to regain control. Forget her. Some ex-employee looking for attention. His voice cracked with forced authority. Nora reopened the financial packet, scanning a line item she'd skimmed before. Debt restructuring, Orchid Q2 report. Her stomach tightened. By the time the meeting ended, speculation filled the air like smoke. The mysterious woman's calm had unsettled every certainty in that room. Outside, the Melbourne sky burned gold over the glass tower bearing the name Helios Labs, a name Amelia herself had chosen 3 decades earlier. She paused on the sidewalk, apron still tied, eyes reflecting the building's mirrored glow. Tomorrow, she would walk back through those same doors, not as the woman they mocked, but as the founder they erased, ready to reclaim her light and remind them that respect is not given by title. It's earned by truth. Morning sunlight spilled across Melbourne's skyline as Amelia Grant stepped off the tram 2 blocks from Helios Labs. Gone was the apron and faded uniform. In its place, pressed trousers, a slate-gray sweater, and dark glasses that hid her intent eyes. To strangers, she looked like any woman grabbing coffee before work. To her, this was reconnaissance. The glass tower loomed ahead, the company she'd built and walked away from a decade earlier. Yesterday, they'd laughed at her in that same building. Today, she would see what kind of rot had taken hold. Her janitorial badge, a relic from a vendor she still quietly owned, clipped neatly to her collar. Security waved her through without a glance. Invisibility had its advantages. The elevator rose, humming softly. Her reflection in the mirrored walls stared back, gray hair, steady posture, eyes sharpened by purpose. 55 years old and still underestimated. That was her favorite disguise. When Amelia sold her public shares years ago, she'd kept control through 7 private entities. She'd told no one. She wanted Helios to grow without her interference, but arrogance had metastasized where humility once lived. Lawrence Pike's smirk, Nora Whitfield's silence, proof that power had turned the company blind. Her phone buzzed. A message from her attorney, Arun Sethi. Rumors spreading. CFO might issue a statement. She typed quickly. Let him. Lies sprint, truth endures. The elevator doors opened on the executive floor. She caught a glimpse of Nora pacing, her assistant trailing behind. The woman looked brittle, her confidence cracked. Amelia almost pitied her. Almost. She turned toward the research wing. The air smelled of ozone and ambition. Screens glowed blue with cascading data, young engineers whispering about targets and deadlines. None recognized her, the founder who once soldered the first neural interface in a borrowed garage. These halls, once alive with wonder, now buzzed with fear. By the vending machine, 2 analysts whispered. Lawrence overstated synergy savings, one muttered. Numbers don't match Orchid's debt report. The other hissed, Quiet! People who question him vanish. Amelia's stomach hardened. That was the truth she came for, the quiet corrosion under the marble polish. In the cafeteria, she sat near a group of interns gossiping about the cleaning lady who crashed the board meeting. One young man, Vietnamese-Australian, spoke up. Still, she was right about the numbers. Amelia noted him silently. Courage was a rare skill set. Then she saw him, her son, Connor. 30 years old, head bent over a tablet, brow furrowed in thought. He passed her without a glance. He worked for Lawrence now, desperate to prove he'd earned his place without her name. She felt the old ache of distance. Their last conversation had ended in anger, her warning him about company politics, his accusation that she didn't trust him. Now, watching him from across the room, she whispered, I never stopped. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city, sunlight fading into a metallic haze. Amelia's thoughts turned to the laughter echoing through yesterday's meeting. The arrogance, the condescension. They had mistaken patience for weakness. They always did. She rose, leaving her tea half-finished. Let them enjoy their illusion of control, she murmured. Tomorrow, we end it. By noon, she exited through the loading dock, blending into the crowd. Arun's voice came through her earpiece. Ownership records secured. Audit logs verified. When do we move? Amelia looked up at the mirrored tower, catching the last light of day. Soon, she said. They think I'm a ghost. But I built the walls they're hiding behind, and I know exactly where to strike. By mid-morning, the executive floor of Helios Labs hummed with forced composure. The boardroom smelled of citrus polish and quiet dread. Lawrence Pike's laughter echoed down the corridor. Too loud, too brittle, as if noise alone could bury yesterday's humiliation. Employees whispered in corners, careful not to be overheard. In a place built on ambition, curiosity was dangerous. Amelia Grant moved silently among them, wearing her plain uniform, eyes calm but watchful. People spoke freely around the invisible. Every careless joke and whispered complaint became evidence. The company's soul was bleeding out in 100 small cruelties. Outside Lawrence's office, his door stood ajar. She paused, pretending to wipe the floor while voices drifted through the crack. You embarrassed yourself, Lawrence snapped. Letting a janitor interrupt a meeting? Nora Whitfield's tone was weary. She knew things about the Orchid acquisition no outsider should. Maybe we should verify her claims. "She's a cleaner with Wi-Fi," he barked. "We're not rewriting projections because some mop jockey read an article online." Amelia's grip on the mop handle tightened, but her face stayed neutral. Years ago, he'd been a hungry junior accountant she'd personally mentored. Now, arrogance had devoured what talent he once had. Later, two engineers whispered by the coffee machine. He ordered background checks on maintenance. Thinks someone's leaking info. The other sighed. He's losing it. Fear was spreading, invisible but contagious. HR Director Lena Morales noticed everything. From her glass-walled office, she watched Amelia glide past, curiosity flickering behind her calm expression. The older woman's posture didn't match her uniform. Something about her presence disrupted the hierarchy like static. During lunch, Amelia positioned herself near the executive dining area. Lawrence presided over the center table, voice booming. "Once we absorb Orchid, I'm killing those diversity programs. Waste of resources." Laughter followed, thin, obedient. Nora's fork paused mid-air, but she said nothing. Silence was survival here. At the far end, Lena took notes on her tablet, pretending to check HR metrics. Amelia recognized the motion instantly. That wasn't paperwork, it was documentation. Their eyes met briefly, Lena's cautious, Amelia's measured. For the first time, Amelia saw a spark of conscience still alive inside the building. When Lawrence spilled his coffee and summoned her with a snap, Amelia stepped forward. "Be careful, darling," he sneered, handing her a napkin. "Some stains never come out." She wiped the spill neatly, then looked at him. "True," she said softly, "especially the ones that start on paper." He frowned, uncertain if she'd insulted him. Before he could react, she was gone. In a quiet stairwell, Amelia pulled out her phone. "Aaron," she whispered, "it's worse than we thought. Begin the filings. I want everything ready." Outside the small window, Melbourne's skyline shimmered in the noon light. This was the empire she'd built to innovate, not exploit. Somewhere along the way, ethics had turned into expense lines. When she returned to the corridor, Lena stood waiting, tablet tucked against her chest. "I checked the debt report," she said softly. "You were right. Orchid's numbers don't match. Who are you, really?" Amelia smiled faintly. Someone who remembers when Helios meant light, not shadow. Lena studied her, then gave a slow nod. "If you're planning to clean this place up," she said, "you won't be doing it alone." Amelia met her gaze, calm and resolute. "Then let's begin." Behind them, Lawrence's laugh burst through his office again, louder this time, emptier, echoing through halls already shifting under his feet. He didn't know it yet, but the empire of arrogance he'd built was beginning to fracture, one whispered truth at a time. Lunch hour at Helios Labs looked more like a performance than a pause. The executive dining hall shimmered beneath amber lights, all polished glass and shallow laughter. The sound wasn't joy, it was hierarchy. Amelia Grant entered quietly, pushing her silver cart of spotless trays. No one really looked at her. That was their mistake. At the center table, CFO Lawrence Pike basked in attention. "Once we finalize Orchid Robotics," he boasted, "we'll trim the waste. Diversity programs, wellness funds, mentorship, gone. Sentiment doesn't scale." His grin stretched wide, a mask of control. The laughter that followed was obedient, not amused. Nora Whitfield, the CEO, stirred her coffee without tasting it. "Optics still matter," she said carefully. "Orchid's brand is built on inclusion. If we dismantle that," Lawrence cut her off. "We're buying assets, not ideology. Customers care about results, not politics." The words hit Amelia like grit in a wound. This was the company she'd founded to merge science and humanity, not profit and cruelty. She kept her movements slow, steady, stacking glasses as if deaf to every word. At the far end, HR Director Lena Morales sat alone, tapping on her tablet. Her eyes lifted occasionally, recording more than faces. She was documenting. Amelia caught the rhythm of her fingers, precise, deliberate, dangerous. Their eyes met briefly. 1 second, enough. Both understood the other wasn't blind. 2 analysts whispered at a corner table. Lawrence inflated synergy numbers again, one murmured. The math's off by at least 3 million. His colleague hissed, "Keep quiet if you want a paycheck." Amelia memorized both faces. Fear had become policy here. When Lawrence spotted her nearby, he smirked. "Careful, sweetheart," he said loudly, so everyone heard. "Wouldn't want to spill anything on people who actually make decisions." Laughter erupted again. Amelia met his gaze evenly. "Don't worry, sir," she said, calm as a whisper. "I've spent my life cleaning up after other people's mistakes." The room froze. Even the hum of conversation paused. Then came forced laughter, brittle as glass. Nora looked away, shame clouding her eyes. Amelia turned and left, her heart steady. She'd seen enough to know who would survive the coming storm and who wouldn't. Down the corridor, she paused at the large window overlooking the courtyard. Below, employees hurried between buildings, unaware their futures were being negotiated away with champagne and spreadsheets. She touched the glass, the cold grounding her. In the stairwell, she dialed Arun Sethi. "Advance everything," she said quietly. "They plan to gut the company's soul for short-term gain." "Do you have proof?" Arun asked. "More than proof," Amelia replied. "I have witnesses." When she returned to the cafeteria, the crowd had thinned. Lena stood by the door, gathering her things. Amelia approached, her tone soft. "You recorded today's conversation?" Lena hesitated. Enough of it. Enough to show intent. "Good," Amelia said. "Protect it. You'll need it soon." Lena frowned. "Need it for what?" Amelia's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. For when truth stops whispering and starts to roar. That evening, the building quieted. Laughter and footsteps faded into hums of distant machinery. Amelia walked the deserted hallways until she reached the maintenance level. The scent of bleach and oil filled the air. Inside her locker waited a single envelope stamped "Board Action, Confidential." She tucked it into her coat pocket and looked up at the fluorescent light flickering overhead. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "the light returns to Helios." Then she turned off the locker room light and stepped into the shadow, ready to bring her empire back into the sun. The boardroom shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, light bouncing off the glass walls like a mirror daring anyone to look too closely. Executives filed in quietly, their chatter tight and careful, laughter forced. Yesterday's chaos still haunted them. The cleaning lady who'd interrupted a multi-million-dollar meeting. Lawrence Pike wanted the memory erased. He straightened his tie, rehearsing authority in the reflection of his tablet. "Let's keep focus," he said, voice sharp enough to cut tension. "The Orchid Robotics acquisition remains our top priority." He launched into the presentation, his confidence rebuilt overnight. The projector lit up with spreadsheets and charts. "Once we absorb Orchid," he declared, "we'll streamline operations, trim redundant staff, and reallocate wasteful budgets, particularly diversity spending. That alone saves $3 million annually." He smiled as if he'd just solved world hunger. The door opened. The soft squeal of wheels drew every eye. Amelia Grant entered, pushing her cleaning cart. Heads turned, some amused, some wary. Lawrence froze mid-sentence, jaw tight. "Didn't we agree to restrict staff access during meetings?" he snapped. Amelia's tone was even. "Apologies, sir, I'll be quick." He smirked. "Maybe while you're here you can offer advice on mergers." Laughter flared, uneasy. Amelia moved around the table, emptying bins with deliberate calm. No one noticed how her gaze lingered on the projection, reading every number. She reached Lawrence's chair just as he dropped a balled-up paper on the floor. "Missed a spot," he said. She picked it up, placed it neatly in the bin. "You also missed a liability," she said softly. The laughter stopped. Lawrence blinked. "What did you just say?" "Debt restructuring," Amelia replied. "Orchid's second quarter filings changed after you finalized your model. Your projected savings aren't real." The room fell silent. Nora Whitfield's pen froze mid-air. Executives exchanged glances. Lawrence's face reddened. "That's confidential information," he barked. "You shouldn't even be in this room." Amelia stood tall, hands folded lightly before her. "If accuracy threatens you, perhaps the problem isn't my presence." Nora's voice wavered. "Lawrence, maybe we should." "She's fired," he interrupted. "Effective immediately." Lena Morales, calm and composed, spoke from the end of the table. "Our policy requires respect toward all staff. Dismissing someone for pointing out an error violates that." Lawrence turned on her. "Are you defending a janitor?" "I'm defending integrity," Lena said evenly. Amelia started toward the door, her cart rattling softly. She could feel the heat of their stares, anger, confusion, fear. Then Lawrence called after her, dripping with sarcasm. "Hey, maybe you can tell us how you'd fix a $200 million deal?" Amelia turned. The room seemed to hold its breath. "I'd start," she said, voice steady, "by hiring leadership that understands math." The silence that followed was absolute. Even Nora's breath hitched. Lawrence laughed, but it cracked halfway through. "Get her out." Amelia smiled faintly. No need. She reached into her apron, withdrew a small silver card, and placed it beside Lena's folder before leaving. The door clicked shut. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Nora whispered, "What just happened?" Lena picked up the card. Her eyes widened. Embossed letters glimmered in the sunlight. Amelia Grant, majority owner, Helios Labs. Color drained from Lawrence's face. "That's impossible," he muttered, voice hollow. Nora's mind raced, connecting names, timelines, the founder's disappearance years ago. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "It's not impossible," she murmured. "It's justice." Down the hall, Amelia pushed her cart toward the elevator, calm as sunrise. Beneath the apron, her phone buzzed, a message from Aaron Sethi. "Board documentation prepared. Ready when you are." She typed a single reply. "Tomorrow." The elevator doors closed with a quiet hiss as Amelia Grant descended from the executive floor. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. The illusion had shattered. The boardroom's golden arrogance, Lawrence Pike's cruel laughter, all of it now teetered on the edge of collapse. But the real work was only beginning. Power meant nothing without proof. When the doors opened on the maintenance level, the air smelled of detergent and steel. Amelia hung her apron in the locker, smoothing the wrinkles as if closing a chapter. She changed into a dark suit jacket, the color of quiet authority, and stepped out into the crisp Melbourne air. A black sedan waited by the curb. Inside sat her longtime attorney, Arun Sethi, reading over a folder thick with documents. "You didn't waste time," he said as she entered. "I couldn't afford to," she replied. "He's already panicking." Arun's eyebrows rose. "The CFO? Lawrence Pike thinks intimidation will save him. He'll double down, harass staff, destroy records, whatever it takes." Amelia opened the folder, scanning the legal drafts. "We need airtight evidence. Employment violations, discrimination patterns, falsified reports, all of it." He nodded. "And allies?" "One confirmed," she said. HR Director Lena Morales. Smart, cautious, disgusted with him. "She's been documenting quietly for months." Aaron flipped through the pages. "And your son?" The question cut deeper than expected. "Connor's with the data team," she said softly. "He doesn't know who I am to him here. I can't risk that yet." Arun sighed. "You think he's safe?" "No one is. Not while Lawrence runs unchecked." That evening, the Helios offices glowed like glass lanterns against the darkening sky. Inside, Lena Morales sat at her desk, the glow of her tablet illuminating tired eyes. The words she'd written in her confidential notes stared back. Evidence of racial and gender bias in promotions, suppression of internal complaints, retaliation threats. She hesitated only a second before encrypting the file and saving it under a harmless label, Budget Review Q4. Her intercom buzzed. "Ms. Morales," Lawrence's voice came through, smooth but cold. "I'd like a word before you leave." Lena closed her tablet and steadied her breathing. "Of course, Mr. Pike." When she entered his office, the city lights shimmered behind him, casting long shadows across the polished table. He didn't look up from his screen. "Strange things are happening here," he said. "Anonymous complaints, rumors, incorrect data leaks. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that?" "Only what's been reported," she answered evenly. He smiled without humor. "You've been a loyal employee. I'd hate to see your name attached to a problem." Lena met his gaze. "And I'd hate to see leadership ignore one." The silence between them was sharp as glass. Lawrence leaned forward. "Watch yourself, Morales. Curiosity can be expensive." "I'm aware," she said calmly, and left before he could reply. Outside, her pulse finally slowed. She texted a single message to a number labeled AG. "He's hunting. We need to move soon." Across the city, Amelia read the text and smiled faintly. "It's begun," she murmured. The next morning, Lawrence's paranoia became policy. New security checks, surprise audits, restricted data access. But the walls he was building to protect himself would soon become his prison. Amelia met Lena in a quiet cafe near the river. Rain tapped the window like a metronome. Lena slid a flash drive across the table. 3 years of complaints buried by Pike's office. Emails, performance reports, deleted files, all restored. Amelia wrapped her fingers around it. "You just changed everything." "What happens now?" Lena asked. Amelia's smile was measured, dangerous. "Now we build the case, quietly, thoroughly. And when the board meets again, Helios will finally remember who built it." By Monday morning, Lawrence Pike's paranoia had become law inside Helios Labs. Overnight, the company had transformed from a temple of innovation into a fortress of fear. Security guards lingered in hallways, their radios crackling. Access badges were rescanned, passwords reset, and every conversation ended in whispers. Employees spoke her name, the mysterious cleaner who had exposed their CFO, but no one knew who she was. Some said she was a spy from Orchid Robotics. Others swore she'd been an auditor in disguise. All agreed on one thing: Lawrence Pike was unraveling. From across the street, Amelia Grant watched through a rain-streaked cafe window, a small smile curling at the edge of her lips. 30 years ago, she had built Helios Labs to heal. Now it was infected, and she intended to perform surgery. Inside, HR Director Lena Morales sat behind her glass office wall, pretending to review performance data as Lawrence's voice thundered down the corridor. "Run background checks on every cleaning contractor, every temp, every vendor," he ordered. "Find her." His assistant stumbled after him, clutching a clipboard. He burst into Lena's office without knocking. "That woman knew confidential details about Orchid's debt restructuring," he said, eyes sharp with exhaustion. "Someone leaked it." Lena remained calm. "If she's not in our system, she might have been a vendor or external consultant." Lawrence leaned closer. "She wasn't guessing, Lena. She knew. Find out how." When he left, Lena exhaled slowly, then unlocked her encrypted folder titled Training Reports. Inside were years of ignored harassment claims, doctored evaluations, and digital trails leading straight to Lawrence's office. She stared at the screen, realizing the company's rot had metastasized far beyond gossip. That afternoon, Amelia returned disguised once more in her maintenance uniform. Fear was her cover now. No one questioned the invisible. She moved quietly between departments, listening. The air was thick with tension. Near the break room, two analysts whispered. "He's checking everyone's history," one said. "He even ordered IT to scan personal drives." The other laughed nervously. "He's afraid of a janitor. That says everything." Amelia smiled faintly. Let him be afraid. Fear was Justice's first shadow. Upstairs, CEO Nora Whitfield sat alone in her office, Orchid Robotics' call still echoing in her ears. "Your CFO's conduct is unacceptable," their CEO had said. "We're reconsidering." Nora closed her eyes. She'd let things go too far. But changing course now meant admitting failure, and she wasn't sure she had the courage. By dusk, Lawrence sat hunched at his desk, replaying grainy security footage. The cleaner appeared in 3 clips, on 3 different days, always with the same calm posture. Her badge ID read blank. "She's not in the system," he whispered. His reflection in the dark window stared back, pale and tired. Across the street, Amelia watched from her parked sedan, her phone lighting with a message from Lena. "He's searching everything. Evidence ready." Amelia typed back. "Good. Let him dig his own grave." That night, they met in an underground parking garage. Rain pooled around the tires of Lena's car. She handed Amelia a flash drive. 3 years of buried complaints, promotion denials, threats, falsified reports, enough to bury him twice. Amelia slipped it into her coat pocket. "Tomorrow, the board meets. Nora will have to choose between silence and integrity." Lena hesitated. "You really are Amelia Grant, aren't you? The founder?" Amelia smiled faintly. "For now, think of me as someone cleaning up what I built." Thunder cracked overhead. Amelia looked toward the gleaming tower in the distance. "He's hunting ghosts," she said quietly. "But tomorrow morning the ghost walks through the front door." Inside his office, Lawrence poured whiskey into a glass, replaying the footage again. "Whoever you are," he muttered, voice shaking, "you picked the wrong man to challenge." He was wrong. Rain slicked the streets of Melbourne the next morning, city lights shimmering like fractured glass. Inside a private dining room overlooking the river, Amelia Grant sat opposite Gerald Tan, the CEO of Orchid Robotics. The man who, by afternoon, was supposed to merge his company into Helios Labs now looked wary, calculating. A single envelope sat between them, sealed in black. "When my assistant said Amelia Grant wanted to meet, I thought it was a joke," Gerald admitted. "The founder of Helios vanished 10 years ago." "I stepped back," she said calmly. "Not away. I wanted to see what the company became without my name attached." She folded her hands. "Now I know." Gerald hesitated. "This meeting, Nora doesn't know, does she?" Amelia's expression didn't flicker. "She doesn't need to. Not yet. But you do." She slid the envelope toward him. Inside were copies of falsified financial projections, doctored reports, and email chains where Lawrence Pike bragged about gutting diversity for profit. Gerald scanned the first page, his expression darkening. "These are internal communications. Pulled directly from Helios servers," she replied. "The numbers they showed you are wrong. They overstate Orchid's valuation and understate liabilities. If you proceed with this acquisition, you'll be dismantling your own values, and your shareholders will notice." He looked up sharply. "So why warn me?" "Because I built Helios to innovate through inclusion," Amelia said, "and I won't let a man like Lawrence destroy 2 companies in 1 transaction." Gerald leaned back, studying her face. "You could have gone to regulators. Instead, you came to me." "I don't want scandal," she said softly. "I want truth. And tomorrow, you'll see it for yourself." Across the city, in her glass office, Nora Whitfield stood alone, staring at her phone. A new message blinked on the screen from an unknown number. Emergency board meeting tomorrow at 9. Your leadership will be tested. Choose your side wisely. The sender's name at the bottom froze her in place, Amelia Grant. Downstairs, Lawrence's day began with fury. "Cancel my afternoon calls," he barked at his assistant. "I'm meeting with legal." He'd received a second security alert, the same unidentified woman entering the building that morning. He didn't know she was already several steps ahead. At noon, Amelia, dressed in an ash-gray suit, entered Helios through a side entrance. Her badge, once dormant, flashed green. No one questioned her. Lena Morales met her in a quiet conference room, sliding over a folder. "The data's verified," she said. "Every falsified report, every manipulated evaluation, every buried complaint." Amelia nodded. "Good. Tomorrow, we don't accuse. We reveal." Meanwhile, Lawrence sat across from Nora in her office, voice low, urgent. "We have a security breach. Someone's impersonating staff. I believe she's a corporate spy." Nora's eyes flicked to the message still glowing on her phone. "You're sure?" "She accessed confidential data, humiliated me in front of the board, and now she's feeding information to Orchid." Nora hesitated. "Or she's someone who already has access." Lawrence froze. "What does that mean?" "It means maybe she's not a spy," Nora said slowly, "but someone who was never gone." He laughed bitterly. "You're buying into ghost stories now?" But Nora's mind was racing. Amelia Grant, founder, 67% shareholder. The pieces were aligning, terrifying in their precision. That night, Lena's coalition of employees met quietly in an unused training room. Analysts, engineers, managers, each with stories of discrimination and silenced voices. "We'll testify if needed," Evan Duong said. "They can't fire all of us." "Don't worry," Lena replied. "Tomorrow, they won't have that power." Across the river, Gerald Tan placed the sealed envelope in his briefcase. "You're playing a dangerous game, Ms. Grant." Amelia rose, buttoning her jacket. "Correction, Mr. Tan. I'm ending one." Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline, echoing through Helios Tower. By morning, the ghosts would walk openly among the living. Morning sunlight crept through the glass facade of Helios Labs, sharp and unforgiving. Something in the air felt different, tense, electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. Employees whispered near elevators, security guards clustered at corners, and the executive floor thrummed with rumors. An emergency board meeting had been called at 9 a.m., and no one knew why. Lawrence Pike arrived early, wearing confidence like armor. His reflection in the polished glass looked powerful, almost unshakable. Almost. Beneath the surface, adrenaline burned. He had spent the night rehearsing control, convincing himself he could contain whatever threat was coming. "We'll handle this quietly," he told his assistant. "Optics first, always optics." Across town, Amelia Grant stood before her mirror, fastening a silver clasp on her charcoal jacket. Gone was the disguise, the faded apron, the rubber gloves, the false humility. The founder of Helios Labs had returned. Her reflection stared back with calm precision. "Time to clean the last stain," she murmured. At 8:45, the boardroom buzzed. Executives clustered in uneasy silence, exchanging theories. Cyber attack, whistleblower, the janitor. The last word hung awkwardly in the air. When the elevator doors opened, conversation stopped. Amelia Grant stepped out, flanked by her attorney, Arun Sethi, and HR Director Lena Morales. Nora Whitfield, pale but composed, rose from her chair. "Let her pass," she said softly. Amelia's heels clicked against marble as she crossed the room. The same boardroom where she'd once been mocked now fell silent under her gaze. "Good morning," she said, voice steady. "I believe I still have a seat at this table." Lawrence scoffed. This meeting is for executives only. Amelia placed a folder on the table. Then, as the majority shareholder, 67% to be exact, I believe that includes me. The words hit like thunder. Gasps rippled through the room. Lawrence's smirk faltered. That's impossible. Aaron opened the folder, sliding out certificates and signed filings, all verified. 7 holding companies, all linked to Ms. Grant. Amelia took her seat at the head of the table, calm as a judge. I built Helios Labs 30 years ago to heal lives through technology. I left it to evolve. Instead, it decayed. Lawrence's voice sharpened. You can't just barge in after a decade and rewrite governance. You don't know what this company has become. Her eyes narrowed. I know exactly what it's become. Because I've been watching. She tapped a remote. The projector came alive, casting images across the wall, security footage, internal emails, and audio recordings. Lawrence's laughter filled the room. Cut the diversity nonsense. Profits matter. Another clip. Him berating a junior analyst. Another. Falsified numbers on Orchid's financials. The room went still. Nora's hand trembled slightly as she covered her mouth. You recorded us? Lawrence demanded. Common areas are under surveillance by company policy, Amelia said, and you all signed those acknowledgments. Lena stood, distributing folders. You'll also find corroborating documentation, 78 incidents of bias, suppression, and retaliation, every report you buried, every voice you silenced. A board member cleared his throat, uneasy. This is substantial. Lawrence slammed his hand on the table. This is an ambush. Amelia didn't flinch. No, Mr. Pike, this is accountability. He turned to Nora, desperate. Say something. You're the CEO. Nora rose slowly, meeting Amelia's gaze. Not for much longer, she said. Then, turning to the board, her voice steadied. I witnessed his behavior. I said nothing. That was my failure. But it ends today. Lawrence's face drained of color. You're all insane. Amelia stood. Effective immediately, Lawrence Pike is suspended pending investigation. HR and legal will coordinate the transition. 2 security officers entered quietly. Lawrence's chair scraped against the floor. You can't do this! Amelia met his glare. I already did. As he was escorted out, the room exhaled collectively. For the first time in years, Helios Labs felt honest. The boardroom doors closed behind Lawrence Pike with a final metallic click that echoed like judgment. For a long moment, no one spoke. The executives sat frozen in their seats, faces pale, breaths shallow. Only the hum of the projector remained, a low, electric sound filling the silence left by his absence. Amelia Grant stood at the head of the table, her posture calm but unyielding. Helios Labs will no longer trade integrity for profit, she said. That era ends today. Her voice was quiet, yet carried weight that no one dared challenge. She looked at Nora Whitfield, who sat rigid, eyes glassy with guilt. Ms. Whitfield, I appreciate your honesty. It spared you your position for now. Nora nodded faintly, the relief mixed with shame. I'll make it right, she whispered. Good, Amelia replied. Then you'll help me rebuild. Across the table, HR Director Lena Morales began distributing packets. Inside, you'll find a new organizational chart, she explained. All departments will undergo compliance audits. Promotions and compensation will be reviewed against discrimination patterns. A murmur rose from the executives. You can't restructure overnight, one protested. We can, Amelia answered, and we will. She turned to Arun Sethi, who activated the second set of slides, graphs of declining employee satisfaction, increasing turnover, pending discrimination claims. These are the costs you refuse to measure, he said evenly. Fixing them isn't idealism, it's strategy. By afternoon, the executive floor had transformed into controlled chaos. HR staff rushed between offices collecting records. Legal teams reviewed old settlements. Department heads whispered into phones, some resigning quietly rather than face investigation. Amelia moved through it all with surgical precision. In the break area, she found Evan Duong, the young analyst who had questioned the Orchid deal. He stood stiffly when she approached. "You were right about the projections," she said. "Your accuracy saved this company millions." Evan blinked. "Thank you, ma'am. I didn't expect anyone to notice." "I notice everything," Amelia said with a faint smile. "You're being reassigned to strategic development. Report directly to Ms. Morales." His mouth fell open. "Seriously?" "Seriously," she said, then lowered her voice. "This company needs people who speak up, not people who stay silent." As word of Lawrence's removal spread, journalists swarmed social media feeds. Headlines exploded. Undercover founder exposes CFO scandal at Helios Labs. Within hours, stock prices dipped 7%. But by evening, a different current began forming. Support from employees, former partners, and even investors who had grown wary of Lawrence's reckless leadership. In her temporary office, Amelia drafted a public statement. Helios Labs recommits to the founding principles of innovation, inclusion, and accountability. Integrity is not a liability. It's our competitive advantage. She sent it to the communications team, then leaned back, watching storm clouds move across the skyline. Nora entered quietly. "The media wants a quote," she said. Amelia shook her head. "No interviews. Let the work speak first." Nora hesitated. "He'll retaliate. Lawrence has allies, money, connections." Amelia looked out the window. "Then he'll learn that truth has more." By dusk, 2 senior vice presidents submitted their resignations, hoping to distance themselves. Amelia accepted them with a polite nod. "Leaving doesn't absolve you," she told one. "Our legal team will still review your departments." Downstairs, employees gathered in the cafeteria, murmuring. For the first time in years, hope felt tangible, fragile, but real. As the lights dimmed on the executive floor, Amelia walked past the glass doors bearing the company's logo. Her reflection stared back, older, steadier, fierce. "Helios means light," she whispered. "It's time it lived up to its name." She turned off the projector, the hum fading into silence. Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline. Tomorrow, the world would know what kind of company Helios intended to be. The storm that had gathered over Melbourne broke the next morning with a cold, steady rain. Inside Helios Labs, the air was cleaner somehow, lighter, though the tension still pulsed beneath the surface. The news had spread everywhere. Lawrence Pike was out, Amelia Grant was back, and the company's future would never look the same. In the boardroom, a new meeting began under unfamiliar rules. Gone were the hushed tones and defensive postures. Amelia sat at the head once more, flanked by Lena Morales and Aaron Sethi. Across from them, Nora Whitfield and the remaining executives waited, notebooks open, trying to look cooperative instead of terrified. "The Westfield acquisition will proceed," Amelia began, her voice measured, "but under new conditions. We will not strip Orchid Robotics of its diversity programs. We will expand them." One executive frowned. "That's not how integration works. It is now," Amelia cut in. "Helios will set the standard. Inclusion isn't a liability, it's leverage." Lena clicked through a presentation. "All executive bonuses will be tied to measurable inclusion metrics. Hiring, retention, and promotion equity will now affect compensation." A ripple of unease moved across the room. Amelia noticed, smiled faintly. Accountability isn't comfortable, that's why it works. Meanwhile, the company itself was transforming. The once restricted executive floor opened to cross-department meetings. HR launched an anonymous reporting system managed by an external auditor. Hallways filled with cautious optimism. For the first time in years, Lower-level employees felt seen. Downstairs, in the cafeteria, young analyst Evan Duong sat with two co-workers, reviewing data. "I can't believe it," one said. "Yesterday Pike was untouchable. Now his office is empty." Evan grinned. That's what happens when people stop pretending not to see. Across the building, Nora met with Amelia privately. "I expected to be fired," she admitted. Amelia studied her for a moment. "You made mistakes, Nora, but you stayed today. That counts for something. Use it." "I will," Nora said quietly. "You have my word." As the day went on, investors began calling. Some were panicked, others intrigued. One major shareholder warned, "You're moving too fast." "Markets don't like moral experiments," Amelia replied evenly. "Then they'll learn, because integrity scales better than greed." By afternoon, industry blogs were buzzing. Founder returns, restructures Helios overnight. Undercover boss or corporate revolution? Analysts debated whether the company would survive. Employees didn't. They were too busy working again, really working, not surviving politics. In the HR office, Lena coordinated interviews with staff who'd filed past complaints. "We're not just reviewing," she told her team. "We're rebuilding trust." Upstairs, Amelia met Gerald Tan from Orchid Robotics. He arrived with cautious respect, carrying a new contract draft. "You kept your word," he said. "I usually do," she replied. He smiled. "Then so will we." They signed the revised deal: equal governance, shared research access, and joint ethics oversight. "We're building something sustainable," Gerald said, "not just profitable." Amelia looked out the window at the rain-soaked skyline. That's what Helios was meant to be. When evening came, the first internal newsletter under her leadership went live. Its title read, "Helios Reborn." The message inside was short. "We cannot change the past, but we can outgrow it." Light doesn't ask permission to shine. In her new office, the one that had belonged to Lawrence, Amelia sat alone for a moment, watching the city lights flicker. The desk was clean now, stripped of vanity awards and empty bravado. Only one photograph remained, the original founding team smiling in a cramped garage. She traced her finger over the faces, whispering, "We're home again." Outside, the storm began to clear, the clouds breaking apart. Helios Labs stood bathed in a faint golden light. For the first time in years, it truly lived up to its name. A year later, Helios Labs was unrecognizable. The building that once pulsed with fear now thrived with purpose. Morning sunlight poured through the open glass atrium, reflecting off bright murals painted by employees. Conversations replaced whispers. Laughter replaced hierarchy. The company that had nearly destroyed itself was finally alive again. Amelia Grant walked through the lobby without guards or ceremony. To most, she looked like any senior leader, calm, composed, quietly observant. To those who knew, she was the reason Helios still existed. She paused by a group of engineers demonstrating a new prosthetic hand controlled through neural sensors. "Whose idea was the adaptive grip?" she asked. A young woman smiled shyly. Maintenance staff, actually. They noticed how the fingers slipped during cleaning. Amelia's eyes warmed. That's exactly what innovation should look like, everyone contributing. Across the building, Nora Whitfield led a workshop on ethical leadership. Gone was the anxious executive desperate to please shareholders. Her voice was steady, her words grounded. "Accountability doesn't erase mistakes," she told the room. "It turns them into instruction." People listened. They knew she'd earned her humility. In the HR wing, Lena Morales reviewed Helios's first comprehensive culture report. The numbers were clear: retention up 21%, grievances down nearly half. She sent a message to Amelia: "Progress, steady and measurable." Amelia replied, "Pride is good. Complacency isn't." Meanwhile, Evan Duong presented quarterly projections to investors. Our inclusive model increased productivity by 23% and reduced turnover costs dramatically. One investor frowned. "You're telling me ethics improved profit?" Evan grinned. "Yes, sir. It's cheaper to respect people than replace them." That evening, employees gathered in the courtyard for Helios's first light night, a celebration of renewal. Music drifted through the air. Food stalls lined the walkways, and the company's new motto glowed across the terrace. Integrity illuminates. Amelia stood near the edge, watching quietly. Workers, analysts, and janitors mingled freely. Someone handed her tea. "You brought the light back," a voice said behind her. It was Gerald Tan, her partner from Orchid Robotics. She shook her head. "I just reminded them they had it all along." Later, she slipped away from the crowd, drawn to the quieter halls. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee, just like before. She stopped by the storage closet where her disguise still hung. The gray apron, the worn gloves. Once a month, she still wore them. Not out of sentiment, but remembrance. Minutes later, she rolled a cleaning cart down the corridor. A few late workers glanced up, smiled knowingly, and returned to their tasks. To them, it wasn't strange. It was Helios culture. No role beneath, no voice above, the motto went. At the end of the hall, Evan caught up with her. "You still do this?" he asked. "I do," Amelia said softly. "It keeps me grounded." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you think people will remember all this in 10 years? Amelia looked through the glass at the glowing city beyond. "If we keep leading by example, they won't need to remember. They'll live it." She returned the cart to storage, folded her gloves, and switched off the final light. For a moment, the hallway was dark. Then the automatic fixtures flickered back on, flooding everything with gold. Helios light filled every corner. If this story inspired you, share it. Remind others that leadership starts with listening, that decency multiplies, and that courage, once shown, never fades. Like, comment, and subscribe for stories that keep the light alive.